College Football 25 is a great game, but there is still a lot of stuff that is missing from it. There's stuff that should be in the game, and in this video today I'm going to go over 10 different features that I would love to see them add in this version, or maybe even College Football 26. But with that being said, let's just get straight into it. The first thing I would love to see is fans rushing the field, because it's so crucial to the atmosphere of a college football game. When underdog beats a top 5 team or even a top 10 team, they rush the field, everyone goes crazy, and even just a couple shots of that, to see that in a College Football 25 video game would be super cool. But I think the reason why they chose not to include it is because EA knows there are rules against it. The schools get fined after it happens, and it's really not supposed to happen, even though it happens so often in real life, obviously. But EA is always going to side with the money and the rules over the player experience, I guess. And at the end of the day, it happens after the game is actually over, which doesn't really mean that much in a video game where you're trying to play the game. So it's just something I'd like to see in the future games, but I understand why they can't include it, and it's not that big of a deal that it's not in the games. Another feature that's still not in College Football 25 that absolutely should be is an expanded record and trophy system in Dynasty, because that's something people wanted back in the spring. They wanted it in the summer. When it came out, they were very disappointed, myself included, to see a lack of record keeping and stuff like that. School, national level, top 10, top 5, it's none of that. So it's something that should be added, and it shouldn't be that hard. It should be, if this is higher than this number, put it in here with the player's name. Like, it's not that hard to add, and it's just something that didn't make the cut, I guess, in College Football 25, but it should be added this year, if not next year. One thing that I've been harping on for the last year or so is mascot mashup, and of course it's not in the game, but as I already said, there's already mascot models in the game for all the teams because they're on the sidelines. So how hard would it be to just kind of map it a little bit to a player? It doesn't even have to be that perfect. Since it's mascot mashup, it's meant for fun. It doesn't have to be perfect animations for all the different mascots. So if they just had something like that, it'd be perfect, and they just chose not to include it. So I think it's definitely something missing from the college football thing. It's completely independent. It's not in Madden. It's something special to the College Football 25 series. So I wish it would come back. Going back to the Dynasty mode, people want to be able to edit recruits, everything, their attributes. There's stuff with NIL, which means they can't edit real players, which I kind of understand. I don't know the technicalities, but I can trust EA on that one, that you're not allowed to do that. There's rules against it, but it doesn't make sense why, computer generated AIs, the recruits you get, 5-10 years down the future in your Dynasty save, why can't you edit those? What's holding you back against editing those? And I think it's just something EA didn't add, even though they perfectly could. So maybe we'll see that in the future as a new update, even though it should have been in here all along, but it's something we can definitely hope for. Something similar, once again back in Dynasty, is full team rankings, which, 134, 137 FPS teams, whatever it is, they used to have this in 14 where you would have the complete rankings. If you were 26th in the nation, you could go in there and see that, but that is absent from College Football 25, and it's not that big of a deal, but what I just said is usually what I used it for. If my team was like, 5-2 and we weren't ranked, but I went on there and I could look how close we were. If we were 27th and we had a good team, if we won, we were going to move up. So I don't know, there's something cool there. You can see who's the worst team in the whole country. Small things, but it was still cool to see, how every single team ranked up against every single other team, which kind of added to the immersion a little bit, but it's not like something we really have in real life. So I'm going to move on to the next one, which is protected rivals issues. I haven't personally experienced this, but I haven't been playing that much Dynasty with, crazy rivalries or stuff like that, but especially with custom protected rivals, which I believe are not in the game at all. You can't even set that up. So that's definitely something missing from, College Football 25, the Dynasty mode. Rivalries are obviously a huge thing in the college football scene, more so than NFL. So that's something that is completely missing and definitely should be in there, is to make those custom protected rivals. And on top of that, they do have the protected rivals, Ohio State, Michigan, stuff like that, but there still have been issues with people, not showing up or being in the wrong week. So that's definitely something that should be fixed, not even a feature, just a fix they need to do to make the experience better, I guess. ESPN Instant Classics, that is one of the biggest things missing from the game, like just kind of on a nitpicky level almost. That's something I wanted to see in the game so badly, because it makes your experience so much more fun, I guess, because of those times when, you play a close game and then you get to see that number 1 or number 2, and then you get to go back and see what was my number 1 craziest game ever. And if you play enough, you know, those top 10 rankings are going to stack up and it's going to be some crazy game. So, you know, like 6 overtime, stuff like that. Those were my favorite things to go back and look at that. And then it just felt so rewarding, I guess, when you won a game and you went back and you saw, you know, it told you at the end of the game that it was ranked on the Instant Classic. So that's just something that isn't here this year. And there is some, you know, stuff with ESPN. They don't have the ESPN rights this year, but they could have done something similar, just Instant Classics or stuff like that. So I definitely hope we can see that in the future, even though I doubt we will. Just a couple, you know, game day stuff I want to talk about real quick. Bottom ticker and QB stats are both things I've talked about in the past. For bottom ticker, basically it only shows about 5 games if you've noticed that in Dynasty mode. I wish it showed a lot more, maybe even all of them, which is something that was in 14, but now it's really not there. It shows, yeah, like again, 5 games, and that's all you can see, and you'll see it over and over again as the game progresses, which is something I wish they would change. And then also quarterback stats, they're kind of convoluted. You know, sometimes you see yards, you know, touchdowns, interceptions, but that does include rushing touchdowns. They barely show completions and attempts, maybe in the top right when you're on play select, but who really even looks at that screen anyway? So that's just something I wish to see that was in 14. You know, after every play, you got to see how your quarterback was doing. So I don't know. I just thought that was something that was missing from this year. A Dynasty spring game is something that I thought for sure was going to be in College Football 25 as a step up from 14, which it was not, but they did not include it this year either, which I think it would have been a crazy feature to add, and it would have been so easy. You could, you know, do so much stuff. I cannot stress how perfectly this would fit into Dynasty. You get a chance to play with your new recruits. You know, you can put 2 battling quarterbacks on either side of the field, you know, sim it, play, whatever you want, and decide which player is better. You know, put up your wide receivers, put up your scrubs on one side, and let them prove themselves. So a spring game would just be fun for exactly that, to just mess around without the stress of an actual game, while still having scores, while still having first downs and stuff like that, you know, team practice doesn't really have. So I don't know, I just think it'd be super cool to do, especially to give the offseason some spice, because right now, you know, you just have your offseason recruiting, transfer, stuff like that, and it just seems kind of boring. So a spring game could be something to look forward to during that offseason time, but unfortunately, once again, it's not in the game. Wear and tear was supposed to be the headline feature of this game, but it really did not pan out how it was supposed to. I know a lot of people who just chose to turn it off because of how unrealistic it is and how much pressure it kind of puts on the players. You know, it makes them all red. You know, your quarterback's throwing -20, you know, throw power, stuff like that, when in reality it would never get to that point, which I have to say I'm getting close in my own Dynasty to just turning it off entirely, because there are a lot of issues with it. So that's something, again, not necessarily a feature, more so a fix that just needs to be done. And I hope they don't just remove it completely in the next year. I hope they do try to fix it, but they just need to tweak it perfectly so it matches real life game, while not, you know, taking away everything. Quarterbacks in the fourth quarter can still throw deep balls, can still throw it accurately somewhat on the run, just a little bit less, and I hope that they do, once again, fix that so it's more realistic. The last thing I have is coach mode. A lot of people want coach mode online, and it's basically like, you know, you call your plays and then you just sit back and watch, and there is an artificial version where you turn on automatic passing, let your quarterback do it, but there is still stuff that doesn't make sense with it. Like, for example, you can't scramble. You know, you can move the controller and scramble, but the quarterback won't scramble on his own. And also stuff like kicks and punts, you have to do on your own. You can't make those automatic. So that's just a drawback, and why a coach mode with additional features could be a crazy good feature to add to make it more fun, and to be a coach instead of always just being a player, you know, getting to move around your, you know, players, quarterback, receiver, run with them. Instead, just sit back and watch while still having the ability to call plays and do subs. With that being said, though, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you so much if you made it this far, and make sure to like and subscribe and come back for the next one. So I will see you.